Hacksters! Today we have an extra special guest, a returning guest on the show. We have Steph Piper, who is a creative technologist and founder of Elkei Education. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and what Elkei is?
Yeah, my name's Steph, and I really love to design circuit boards, make 3D printed stuff, and yeah, I'm an all-around maker. And my company Elkei, we make electronics kits for young girls, and one of my latest kits here is a three-dimensional soldering kit. So it looks like this here, and the idea is that you can pop out all of the pieces, and you can assemble it into a 3D lamp that lights up when it gets dark. It looks a bit like this when it's done.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And is it, you said it lights up when it gets dark. Does it have a photoresistor on there? Or?
Yeah, classic photoresistor circuit.
Classic.
But yeah, I'm really proud of how the art's come out on this. Like to actually get all the mouse bites, which are these little snap-off points in there properly, to the point where it makes it easy for someone to remove all the parts. It was a lot of prototyping, and yeah, like the factories tend to not like it when you do too many of these. So yeah, it was a really great feeling to get this right.
Could you tell us what kinds of challenges it involved? Because we've got a little bit of a close up here, and what might people like? For example, I'm actually making PCBs, and I always end up with these like sharp little spars on them, and I'm not sure how to get rid of those, or like what the best way is. The best that I've come up with is a Dremel. I have to like go through and post process every single one with a Dremel. So if you have tips on making that better, please share.
Oh yeah, probably nothing more than what you've already discovered, to be honest. I'd just be putting on my safety glasses and getting my little pair of flush cutters out and just trying to snip them off as best as I can without getting them in my eyes.
Yeah. The flush cutters are away. I always end up with these little nubbins though, and I'm like, oh, I just want it to look a little bit nicer, So what were the prototyping rounds that you went through on this that you did that changed how the mouse bites were?
Oh yeah, so I did write a blog on it. It's up on my website. But yeah, I went through about 9 different iterations before I got it right. And I had like a whole series of different ways of arranging all the parts. But it really clicked when I realized that I didn't need to have something that went all the way around the outside. I could just have the parts sitting on the outside and snap them off just as is.
Yeah. I see. Because some of these like there's not like a whole border around everything. There's some that are sort of like you say, just like sitting at the edge, and they're not like encapsulated in this panel.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's right. It was really tricky to get this designed as well, because like you're not just talking about the circuit board software, you're talking about the art and the 3-dimensionality of it. So you've got to prototype all of the outlines first in a 3D modeling software to make sure it will all fit and look right first. And then you've got to export those outlines as flat to like Adobe Illustrator or your illustration artwork editing software of choice, and get the artwork made up and in the right layers for the circuit board process. And then finally it goes to, for me, KiCad or KiCad, and you finally go and put in the actual functional circuit. And yeah.
That makes sense.
It took me a while to get it right. But,
yeah.
I'm certainly a lot faster at this process now.
3D modeling at first makes total sense. What do you use for that?
For that one, I used Rhino, to be honest, just because it's an easy software for me to play in. But yeah, I also really like Fusion 360 as well.
Yeah, I wonder if that might have some advantages because it's it's got both 3D CAD and PCB CAD in it. But then again, I use like Onshape and Procreate. So.
Yeah, true.
And KiCad. Yeah, amazing. So part of the reason that we invited you on again is because you've released this easy DIY companion bot build, which is very exciting for me as a lover of companion bots. First up, could you tell me, everyone has a different opinion on this, what is your idea of what a companion bot is?
Anything that has a bit of character and personality to it, I feel like. I reckon that's probably my answer. Yeah.
So the personality is sort of the defining part of it being a companion bot compared to like some other kind of technology.
Yeah, and I feel like anything really that you build can have a bit of personality with just a couple of googly eyes.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I agree. I think that a big, like, that's basically the defining part is that, yeah, it's like social. Could you show us one of the ones that you've made with this project before we
Yeah.
delve into it?
So this is Russell Crowe.
Of course.
So this is a bird rower, and if we switch it on here, we've got a beak that moves, we've got a light that turns on, and we've got a key that spins around on the back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is made with a 3D printed chassis underneath and an Arduino Nano to make it all come together. 2 servo motors and an LED light. And obviously a lot of heavy crafting elements here, which really give it like a really good sense of, you know what it is when you're seeing it.
Yeah, and it's very individual as well. Even though you have this sort of standardized base that you're using, it's very much like its own thing.
Yeah.
I love
Oh,
how
yeah.
the clockwork key is on the back there. I remember when you shared this on social media, it struck me because with these bots, it's always kind of a question: do we make it lifelike? Do we try to make it lifelike? Do we try to make it like look like a robot? Where in between does it lie? And like, if you try to make it lifelike and it kind of fails, then you end up in this uncanny valley. But like by putting a clockwork key on the back, then it absolutely signals like, yes, this is a robot. You're not intended to like think of it as like a real animal, and that kind of gives you some more grace to work with, maybe.
Yeah. That's a good thought.
Mm. Uh, could you tell us, yeah, which of these? So you've got 3 templates here.
Yeah, so the intention behind like this tutorial here is it's a starting point for someone who like wants to build their own companion robot, but doesn't sort of quite like they want some kind of a framework to work around. So the idea is that, as you can see on the screen there, we've got 4 different chassis types that you can 3D print out. And it already includes enclosures to screw in and mount an Arduino Nano with a screw terminal base, as well as your servo motors. So the 2 in the middle use the smaller micro servos, and the 2 on the outer edges use a larger servo motor, like the standard one, I suppose. Yeah, so with these shapes, the intention is that like whatever you've sketched out or you've got visualized in your head, you can make it come to life by building around these chassis types. Yeah,
And
obviously not everything, but yeah, there's one there for mounting it like on your shoulder.
so good.
Yeah, there's the Peabody shape, which is, I suppose, the one I used for the bird. And then there's a couple of desk shapes, which means that you can sort of have something a bit large and chunky that might sit just on a flat space somewhere.
Amazing. So having worked, you've run some actual workshops with these kits and models, and based on that experience, how easy actually is it? Like, how old are the people that you're working with? What was their experience like in these workshops you were teaching?
Yeah, so I initially was only going to have it open from year 10 to 12. But yeah, I think next time I would definitely open it up from year 8 to 12, and yeah, get a larger group of people who are interested in doing it. And yet the students absolutely loved it. This was like, so I've only run this session once, and I had a lot of learnings from the first time. I think the biggest thing was like what do you say? Yeah, not understanding how much time it would take to do the crafting. Yeah, so like I had so many crafting materials that I packed in for this, and yeah, the idea is that once you've got the electronics done and the 3D printing done, if you'd like to, 3D print something that attaches to a motor, same as this little key turner here in the example, then the idea is that you can sort of bulk out the shape of what you're trying to achieve with wire. So you can get, some big gauge wire and start building out some shapes on the chassis. And then you can start using like different scrap fabric that I got from a place in town here that does like junk workshops.
Love it.
Yeah, so like all kinds of fabric offcuts from industrial process, all that kind of stuff they could use to make it all come together. But yeah, 2 days was not enough time. I feel like maybe 3 days, just leaving a whole day for just crafting and decoration, I feel like would really bring out some pretty fantastic looking finished products.
That makes sense because you've got to kind of like think of your design and then like try to implement it in the amount of time that you have and like go back and like rebuild some things. So that, oh, that's always takes so long for me.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think the trick is to like if you're keen on doing this, is to keep it simple as
Mm.
much as you can, because it's very easy to go overboard and be like, yes, I shall cut individual feathers for this bird. Then you're like, wait a minute, this is taking me how long per feather? So yeah, that was one of my biggest realizations with this one, was to just, okay,
Mm.
what do I need to cover the chassis, as my base goal, and hide the wiring, to make it look like a bird. So yeah, I feel like that's really like, yeah, the thinking you need to have around it as a minimum viable product, I suppose.
I do feel like with my projects, it always ends up in that last stage being like close enough, and like what can I get it so that
Yeah.
it's close enough? Like this part is
Mm,
close enough, and that part's close enough, and we have some code that kind of works. Speaking of which, tell us about the code side of this. So you're running a workshop. These kids are building their robots. Do you teach the code all at the end, or do you try to like because they kind of inform each other, right? The physical design
mm.
and the code. And do you provide them with code? How does it work?
Yeah, so they're provided with code. Like, I really want to make this as easy a process as I can make it for the students. Like, especially with teaching stuff like Arduino. Like, some of us take to it pretty naturally and are excited about the possibilities, but other people sort of see it and it's just too much, and they're sort of, unless they're building something they're really excited about, Arduino can be a bit like a bit threatening sometimes. I feel
Mm.
like, so making sure that I had like a good like copy paste bit of code that they could use and then adjust to suit the personality of their bot they were trying to build was really important. So yeah, we were doing on the second day pretty much all the circuit building and then all the coding.
Mm.
And I ended up running into some unexpected troubles with the micro servo motors.
Oh no.
So I didn't realize this, but I think I might have, or the supplier I ordered from must have given me 360 rotation micro servos, which
Ah.
I didn't know existed. I
Which is
just thought
very
they did
different
angled.
from the wait, were they continuous rotation or were they like back and forth kind of but 360
Yeah,
degrees?
yeah. I thought they were just going to be angled rotation, but they seem to be
Um,
continuous rotation. So when all the students plugged it in and were trying to run the code on them,
oh
they just
no!
they
Yeah,
just be
it's totally
spinning.
different because instead of setting the angle, then you're
Yeah,
setting the speed of the motor. I've totally run into that
yeah.
before because I
Mm.
just have a bucket of
And
servos at my place. Oh
yeah,
no!
I was like, yeah, racking my brain trying to figure out what was
Oh,
going wrong. I'd never run into this before at all. And it wasn't until like one of the helpers in the session went and got some of his personal stash of servos that were the right type, which
uh-huh.
looked like visually identical.
I know, yeah. And they don't
Yeah,
say on them either. They don't say
yeah,
continuous rotation unless you have the packaging or like
mm,
standard servo or whatever.
yeah, yeah. And it didn't, like, when I looked back on the listing where I bought it, it didn't say anything like that either. So
Oh,
like, yeah, yeah, I'm still a little bit confused about what was going on and where the fault sort of, yeah, ended up laying. But yeah, so yeah, the students get to do a bit of 3D modeling in Tinkercad there as
oh,
well,
that's
which
cool.
you've got on the screen. So Tinkercad's really nice because you can just straight up import those same two motors that we were using,
Uh-huh.
and they
Oh,
can
cool.
use that to model the shape around. The idea
Oh,
is that
that's
they
amazing.
can 3D print something that attaches to the motor. Yeah. So
Is
the
that
intention
something
was like to give them a broad range of maker skills across the 2 days.
yeah, is that something
Mm.
that exists within Tinkercad or something that you, like, find in a library online somewhere or, like, Thingiverse or
Uh,
something?
yeah, it exists in Tinkercad. So
Wow!
Tinkercad's got like a huge like pull down menu system now that has like all kinds of like circuit board components now as well.
Man,
And they've
Tinkercad growing
also,
up.
yeah, they've also got like a full on circuit interface as well, where you can click and drag lines between, a breadboard and an Arduino and a servo, and simulate what it's doing with
Wow.
code as well.
And they were bought by was it MakerBot or who's the most recent, like, acquisition there? I feel like whoever is
Autodesk.
Autodesk, of course, same people
Mm.
as Fusion 360. So I feel like, while some sort of acquisitions are ambivalent, I feel like this one is really doing some good stuff.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
yeah, like it's so powerful and intuitive for what it is. Like,
Oh, it really
yeah,
is.
it's such a great starting point for someone who's never done any 3D modeling before.
And if you use things like Thingiverse to get started with, like, a basic model, it's so good for, like, tweaking stuff, shoving things together, like a GoPro mount and, like, another piece that you've modeled and
Mm,
whatever. So good.
yeah, and off you
Uh,
go.
yeah. What was your favorite design that a child or a student came up with in this?
Oh,
Tell us about it.
good question. So everyone had such great designs, so that all had such like amazing little weird characters.
Ooh,
And I did a whole thread of like all the students' projects on my Twitter
ooh.
after the session. But yeah, I think my favorite one was definitely one of the students who did like the shoulder chassis. So she did like this big like fantasy cat model. So it wasn't quite a
Oh,
cat, but it
wow.
looked quite like a cat. And it had like this big head as well, imagine on the front, that was like sort of turning its head like sort of like a cute little animal way.
Oh,
And it actually went all the way around. So she made it really long and it wrapped around like a scarf.
oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, it was delightful. Yeah, there was also builds where people had like a claw that was like on the side, moving up and down. Um, yeah, lots of eyeballs and mustaches and all kinds of great little characters.
I love that. We'll put the link to Steph's Twitter in the, description to this video, of course.
Yeah, but yeah, I think this activity really illustrates the power of like doing a STEAM focused activity. So not just STEM with your science, technology, engineering, maths, but putting the A in there, putting the arts in there to make it
Mm.
something that someone who, wouldn't usually be excited about Arduino to actually get in there and realize the creative possibilities of, building little characters. You could even build out this activity to be a multi-week thing with school students where they
Oh.
actually program their bots to be in a play or star in a short film or anything like that. And that's got huge real world consequences in terms of, like some of the stuff that Disney is doing with animatronics.
Mhm.
Yeah, huge entertainment industry stuff. And it really is something that you can take home and like, yeah, especially if you're in year 12 or you're looking at getting some kind of, internship or part-time job in that kind of industry, you could rock up with this thing in hand and
Mm.
be like, yes, I made this. And it's a physical portfolio item, really.
I love that.
And they're like, you've got the job.
I feel the same about going to events with the companion bot. It's like, often, especially if you're not super outgoing, it's hard to, like, you feel like you have to prove yourself sometimes, which is not a great thing
Mm,
about, like, any community, but I feel like it's a realistic part of life. But, like, you can sort of show up and it is your introduction. It's like, "This is a
mm,
thing, this is who I
I made
am,"
this.
at least a part of who I am. It's like an instant recommendation and people know a thing to, like, ask you about, and it's like an instant
Yeah.
conversation starter. It's so good.
Yeah, yeah. Super powerful.
Just like your pins here, I feel like these if you rock up wearing one of these and people are absolutely gonna ask about this, and,
Mm,
I just have to show off this pin again because you've done something amazing here. For those who aren't familiar, this is, one of Steph's previous projects, that we've featured on the show before, both in an interview and as a, like, live soldering event. But one of the amazing things about this particular kit of yours is that you've done this multiple colors of solder mask, which is something that no one else has really figured out, that I personally know. Everyone's, like, wondering
mm.
how you did it, and I won't ask, but, what you said last
Yeah,
time is
the
that it's
secret is really finding a manufacturer that will do it for you. But it's really
exactly.
hard to find, to be honest. Like myself and my business partner traveled to China back in August 2019, which
Wow.
is maybe a little bit terrifying to think about in terms of timelines now and COVID. But yeah, we were over there and we went to like a full-on circuit board manufacturer expo, and we're wandering around and our translators with us, and the translator's asking all these places on our behalf, like, can you do multicolor circuit boards, different solder mask colors? And every time, nearly, it was just a hard no from all these places. And, we had questions coming back being like, why would you do this? Circuit board meant to be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
functional, not aesthetic, fool. Uh, so it was a real stroke of luck that we found somewhere that just said yes and were willing to give it a go and be a bit innovative with the manufacturing process.
It feels similar to your thing about the mouse bites, just like, having to really sort of wrangle with people and be like, no, I really want it to be like this. And like, even though people don't necessarily understand like why, because it's not like as functional that way necessarily, or it doesn't have like a functional purpose.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, it's just pure usability of the person putting it together,
Mm.
really.
Yeah, and there's like more design constraints and stuff. Speaking of
Mm.
which, uh, art PCBs, tell us about this project.
Yeah, so there it is on screen, and I've also got it in person sitting next
Oh,
to me as well.
yes.
Here it is. Yeah, this is a new wearable technology project that I've been working on. And the idea is that each side has a circuit board in there. And when you open it up, you can switch it on and have a bit of a light show. So yeah, I'd really like to explore this as a bit of a new medium for future wearable technology anyway, making something that looks and
Ah,
feels very modern and a bit sci-fi in
yeah.
terms of, having something that's really beautiful and functional at the same time.
Yeah, and it's really that sort of glitzy side of sci-fi, like you're saying, where it's beautiful and like technological. It's yeah.
Mm, yeah, like I'm really excited about the possibilities with this type of aesthetic and wearable technology stuff. And like really, there's so few people out there doing stuff like this because we have such a diversity problem
Mm,
in electronics and building this kind of stuff, a huge skill gap. And yeah, it feels like there's still so much potential in that space that's yet untapped, and there's so many cool things yet to be created.
I love the name of your store being Glitch Witch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, so this is a bit of a partnership with my mum as well.
Ah!
Yeah, so we're both collabing on this, and a lot of the stuff, like the bags that have lights,
Uh-huh.
like not this clutch bag, but the other bags in here, are made by her.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she's been really enjoying experimenting with the different possibilities of, um, how things can look at night with different reflections and fabrics and
Mm-hmm.
lighting. The store's pretty small at the moment, though. There's not too much in there, but it's a bit of a start.
But what's there is pretty cool. Are you getting your own custom stickers made as well?
Yeah, so I've got a vinyl cutter. So yeah, I love making sparkle stickers for all my stuff at home. So it makes sense to put them up online.
You have so many different disciplines that you're doing. You're 3D printing, laser cutting, PCB design, using your plotter cutter thingamajig. I forget what you called it. Sorry.
A vinyl cutter, yeah.
Vinyl cutter. There we go. Yeah. What do you think you would pick up next if you had a free week to pick up one new skill, either for pleasure or to sort of help level up your other skills or both? What do you think you would pick next?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, there's just so many things out there, isn't there?
I
Like,
know.
yeah, but I think definitely like software. Like I'd really love to sit down and learn some real coding properly. Like at the moment, my Arduino skills are, sort of, looking at templates and figuring out what's going on, and then massaging it to work with another use case.
Mm,
But I'd really love to sit down and learn C++ or C plus or whatever it is,
yes.
and actually, yeah, get a greater understanding of how to do some really creative projects with Arduino.
I love that because it occurred to me when you're talking about this DIY companion bot build and the workshop that you have with you give them some code to mess with. You're kind of providing that for the kids. And if you were saying, as you say, you did like a longer workshop, especially with the older set of kids that you're talking about, it seems like, you know, the people who find it easier to think about the hardware side could do more of the hardware side. The people who are really interested in the coding have so much room to dig into that with this project. They can just really like go ham on it if they wanted to.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, like the coding, as I said before, is something that is not very intuitive at all to think about. Like it is really sort of like you do really need that like decent language background, I think, to do Arduino properly without looking at any other guides.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
even as someone with like a human languages background, I find the code to be the most challenging part.
Oh
But
yeah.
you mentioned that you've done it with sort of classes 10 to 12, year 10 to 12, and you're thinking about doing it with 8 to 10 as well. Have you thought about doing it with any older people, or is that just...
Oh yeah. I did receive a lot of interest just from like just people who were out of school who were interested in it, and quite a lot of homeschool parents as
Oh
well were pretty interested too. So if anyone out there is watching this and they'd like to have a go at running their own version of this session using the instructions that I've put up, feel very welcome to. I'd be really excited to see what other people make using this as a base. Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of potential with spreading this far and wide and getting more excitement about electronics.
Yes. And given the size of these, I'm guessing that it takes a while to print. I'm guessing that you might have like pre-printed them and then brought them to the workshop and let people choose. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It did take a fair while, like weeks in advance, to prepare these for a class. I think that was one of my other major learnings, was to not have that many people in the class at once. So by the time you imagine someone is sitting at a desk with their laptop and with their bot and crafting materials for days, they actually need quite a lot of room, and you can't really squish people into a standard classroom format. So you really do need to have a format where you give everyone a desk, pretty much like a long desk, and that is where they're sitting. So however many of those desks you can fit into your classroom scenario space, that is how many people you can comfortably teach. So for me, that was sort of about 6 people. I was thinking I'd take 12, and I'm glad I didn't do that. Oh, Lord.
So you're bringing all these skills, and the kids are learning like coding and electronics and maybe a bit about crafting as well if they choose to pick up a new medium because it looks cool. What do you think was the most challenging part of that for the children in general, young adults?
Yeah, I think I think probably the crafting, to be honest. Actually, yeah, like especially if you haven't really had that much experience in just free form crafting, it can be a bit of a challenge to get your head around it. And what I really love about your robot builds is that you've been able to make them look so stunning, but still so minimalist and simple. The effect comes together, and it's a bit of an art form, I think, to strike that balance between the amount of effort that you put in and the look that you get at the end.
Absolutely. I will tell you for free that I have a talk coming up tonight, and I'm gonna bring Fenrir, who's like, I think that was like, that's like the best looking one so far. But what I've been trying to do all October is build a raccoon robot, and I've got some cool stuff going on with like these ribs and stuff. But I'm using a real fur, and someone suggested that I use needle felting to apply fur to other pieces of felt on top, and then I'm gonna layer that with stuff. But like, it's like a whole new. The needle felting is completely new to me, and I'm like, how am I gonna blend the real and the fake fur so that it doesn't look really awful? And I'm just terrified of it. So I've been sitting here all day, and yeah, it totally is one of the most, just making it look nice. That's like the 80% at the end of the project, or the 20% that takes the 80% of the time.
Yeah. And I think, if you're only providing junk materials as well, you can sort of lower the bar a bit with that expectation. Like, it's all sort of, like the fur on this robot is offcuts from car seats.
Oh!
Yeah. So, it's just like just a long strip, and that's how it arrived. It wasn't any bigger than that. So just tying that on. I think if you do want to get it done like in a workshop time frame, making sure that the students understand that, like they've got to keep it simple.
Well, I do love that you have the little bit of fur on the face as well, which helps keep it consistent. I love that you put the clockwork key on there, which again, I feel like that kind of excuses a lot. It's like I heard about this at the risk of taking up a bunch of your time. I heard about this service robot, either Pepper or a similar one, but they were releasing it in Japan, and they realized that when they had an adult voice on it, people thought that it was a bad robot because it wasn't very good at the different levels of formality and how to address people and stuff. But when they made it a child, then it suddenly they're like, oh, it's charming. Oh, it doesn't know any better because it's a child. And your Clockwork Key kind of does a similar thing here, where it's like
Mm.
giving it the like, oh, of course, like it's a manufacturer, it's a robot. It doesn't have to look like a real bird. But it does, and it like, and you've used this hat here to kind of cover up the top of the head, which I think is genius as well.
Oh yeah, absolute bedlam when I sent out a big email asking for tiny hats at work. As you can imagine. But yeah, the head was someone came in one day and said, "Oh, Steph, you can see its brains. Maybe you should get a little hat for it." And I thought, okay, yeah. But yeah, the head is pretty much just like a wireframe, and I've wrapped black fluffy wool around it to sort of give it a bit of coverage, I suppose.
Smart. It is pretty easy to match black with black, is a good thing.
But yeah, I think it's a really interesting wider discussion around like the personalities that we do give robots. Yes. In general. Like, to be honest, like when you start looking up like assistant robots and that kind of thing on, even AliExpress, the type of stuff that comes up as like your base model for something you might want to, hack on or, turn into something that, is useful for you around the house. To be honest, I'm a bit sick of all the feminization of those robots.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it feels like the engineers are just, they're in the drawing room and they're like, oh, yes, if we have, like a bit of a breast shape on the front, we're going to need to offset it with a really thick ass on the back as well. Just as a pure counterweight.
That's true. Oh, I didn't mean to pull that up right now, but like just on the hats theme, I feel like that is totally a part of the personality. Archie has this sort of more stuffy personality, and he's got this little top hat because he's an owl, and you've got this cowboy hat on your crow that came from a Woody doll, maybe. Amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you're saying about the way that they're like feminizing the service robots and making them, we want this to be like an entity, so clearly it has to have a gender.
Yeah. Like, I think it'd be, there's so much room for creativity in terms of making it just its own thing. You see so many fantastic, cute, adorable, lovable robot characters that, are featured in, some of our favorite movies. I feel like there's a lot of creative potential that's not being tapped into properly with those robot builds, which is why we need more, creative people and STEM people and diverse thinking people in those places that are building those robots, I think.
Absolutely. I'm also always curious about the inspirations people use for the physical forms. So you having running a full workshop on this, what kind of variation did you see? Were people choosing like real animals, mythical creatures, completely made up things, robot kind of designs? Or yeah, what did you see?
Yeah, so as part of the brainstorming process at the very start of the workshop, I actually got everyone to follow Sophie Wong's process that she advertised and put up a tutorial for on her channel, where you essentially have a 3D printed stencil that has quite a few very small thumbnail squares across. And the idea is that you trace this onto your Maker notebook that you get at the start, and you sketch out like the bare wisp of an idea in each one. And so you go through and you fully, hopefully, exhaust all the ideas that you might have and all the different ways that something could come together. And you're not just picking your first idea that you think of, you're fully thinking out, how it could go. So yeah, a lot of students, really struggled with that. To actually think of that many ideas, because I think they'd already sort of settled on maybe something they wanted to do. But yeah, some of them, just had characters that just evolved with the crafting, I think, that came with it.
That definitely does.
Oh yeah, we had someone as well, a student who wanted to do like a wolf's head that would like sit mounted on the wall.
Whoa.
Like a taxiderm come to life type
thing.
Yeah, all kinds of different things people came up with, and you love to see. Hey, you found that thread. There it is.
Yes. Another little hat.
Yeah.
Little hat robot. I love that huge claw. It's so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was from
a little Dalek-y, honestly.
Yeah, the junk group. So you can see how like the crafting is very unfinished on these. I really wish I'd had another day with these students to help them,
I love
get a bit more life to them.
But you can also see how the programming, the way that they programmed it, kind of affected the end result. And like this one moves really fast and jerkily, and and it kind of reminds me of a vulture almost,
Yeah, it's sort of
especially with
like,
that like bare head on top of the bird form.
yeah, you can imagine like a really big one of those in like a disco scenario or
It looks
something.
like some kind of, post-apocalyptic sci-fi movie where there's these like
Oh, true,
security
yeah.
camera vultures. I love that. Ah.
Always watching Wazowski.
So good. Hmm. Is there
Oh yeah.
anything you'd like to throw in before we wrap up?
Oh no, I think this has been pretty good. But yeah, if you are interested in taking on this and having a go at teaching your own workshop using these methods, any troubles, yeah, feel free to reach out, and I'm very happy to sit down and help you out. Yeah, looking forward to see what you make.
Awesome. And everyone, you can find the links in the description below for Steph's companion robot build templates. For our previous features of Elkei on the channel, of course, you can go to elkei.com.au to find the all the Elkei stuff. There's also your Twitter, and then there's also the Glitchwitch site, which I only just found out about today, which is
Surprise.
amazing. Check that out. Wearables, and then all this beautiful PCB stuff on Elkei. Love it. Thank you so much for joining us again, Steph. It's
No
always
worries.
a
Thanks so much
pleasure.
for having me.
Cheers.